Hello everyone and welcome back to the second Piatigorsky Cup of 1966. In the last two videos I made a bit of a detour at get you closer to the legend that is the Samuel Reshevsky, as he was one of the strongest players in the world for better part of the 50 years. And some of you said in the comments that you actually had no idea who he was, so I hope the games versus Capablanca and Lasker brought you up to speed. And it's something that I feel that you need to understand in order to appreciate all of the players of the past, and in order to appreciate Bobby Fischer even more, is to simply have an idea of the timeline of what was going on in the chess world throughout the years. America started very, very strong. They had Paul Morphy. They had Paul Morphy, who had not only the knowledge and the hunger to beat everyone, but also he had the means. He came from a rich family. He could travel the world. If you guys remember from the Paul Morphy saga, Morphy's family never allowed Morphy to actually earn money with chess, even if they wanted to play Morphy for money. If you remember the first American Chess Congress, Morphy was awarded $300 and that fancy silver or gold plate, and he declined the prize. So what I'm trying to say is that America had Paul Morphy, and then ever since Paul Morphy, they were looking at where's the next Morphy? Will we have the next Morphy? Who will challenge the great players of the next era that is to come? So they had some interesting prospects and some incredible players in the likes of, let's say, Harry Nelson Pillsbury, who won the Hastings tournament, and he was very, very strong. Unfortunately, he died young and, very, very tragically. They had Frank Marshall. Everyone knows Frank Marshall, but he was world class level, but he had to play against Lasker, he had to play against Capablanca, he had to play against Aljechin, he had to play against all of these incredible players of the previous golden era, and coming out on top here and just imposing your will in such competition wasn't an easy task. And also, you had some others, maybe Isaac Kazhdan, maybe hard to say, he was called the little Capablanca, but never really got up to that level. And then you had Samuel Reshevsky, who really had it all. He could get there. He was a prodigy, unlike many of the others, players of the past who only came at a certain level later in life. He was a prodigy. He had it all, but he had to work for a living. He also was an accountant. We called him the world's deadliest accountant. And he was the absolute best in the world. Maybe just not world champion. So then we get to Bobby Fischer, and the Bobby Fischer also, if you know what kind of a life Bobby Fischer had, definitely wasn't a picnic or walk in the park. And he really studied chess. He studied like no one else. He knew more theory than anyone, and paired with that, he was an incredible player, so he was definitely a force to be reckoned with. So a bit of a detour there, but just wanted to let you know why we do this, why we talk about the past, why I enjoy chess history so much, and who Bobby is facing in this tournament. We are in the second Piatigorsky Cup. This is round 11, and he faces the so-called Hungarian Botvinnik, Elias Portisch, who, again, a Hungarian legend. He did it all. He at one point, I believe, he was even number 2 in the world behind Karpov in 1981. During this tournament, he was also very, very strong. A bit older than Fischer. I think he was 29 years old when this game was played. And throughout his life, he really, did all he could for chess. He participated in 20 chess Olympiads over the course of 50 years. He qualified for the candidates tournament 8 times, I believe. He won the Hungarian championship 8 or 9 times. I think he won 8 times, and 1 time it was shared first place. So he was an incredible player. He was even awarded in 2004, I don't know what's it called in Hungary, but the highest honor one could receive in sports. So yeah, really incredible player. And here he faces Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer, like we said, had a pretty rough start to the tournament, but now in the second half, we all know what happened. He had that a good talk with Spassky. Spassky sort of brought him back to life, and he started playing very, very well. And as I'm recording these videos now to sort of give you a perspective from Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky throughout this tournament, until their clash in the second part of the tournament. And Boris slowed down a little bit. He started stacking up draws, and Bobby started stacking up wins. So let's see what happens in this one. Laios with white opens with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6 by Bobby and pawn to c4. Okay, we have pawn to e6 and now knight to c3 and bishop to b4. Fischer opts for the Nimzo-Indian defense. We have pawn to e3 and now pawn to b6, the so-called St. Petersburg variation, but also in some literature you will find this as the Fischer variation. He got some very, very nice wins with this line. We have knight to e2, bishop to a6, and now knight to g3. And while you could continue development with castles or pawn to c5, pawn to c5, Fischer immediately trades on c3 and plays pawn to d5, trying to make Laios worry about the c4 pawn. And it has been played before, it has been played afterwards. For example, it's a very, very well-known position here, bishop to a3. Vasily Ivanchuk used this move in 1991 to defeat Jan Timan. Also, c captures on d5. Hikaru Nakamura tried this twice against Fabiano Caruana, both in Norway Chess and in an Armageddon game in Norway Chess, where Hikaru got only a draw and a loss against Fabi. But here we have queen to f3. It is the top move recommended by the engine, still played, and this is what Laios plays. And we have castles kingside by Bobby. Pawn to e4, and here it's hard to say how much they actually knew about this position. Bobby knew quite a lot about this position because he already had it in 1965. He had it against Anthony Saidi in the US Chess Championship, and he defeated him. But in that game, he played d captures on c4. He went for the pawn. He gave Anthony the strong center, and it really took a lot to win this game from Bobby. He had to sacrifice the exchange. He had to mobilize his kingside pawns. It was a complete mess of a game. In the end, Bobby won, as he always won games in the US Chess Championship. But here he says, all right, I've learned from that game. D captures on e4, and it is now as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. So, okay, knight captures on e4. We have knight captures, queen captures, and queen to d7. Nicely developing and obviously offering the rook on a8. But why is Fischer doing this? Well, if you play queen captures on a8, the idea is knight c6 simple, and now the queen has to capture the rook. So it's basically an offer of 2 rooks for the queen. But here it would be a little bit too early. If queen captures on f8, usually it's a great idea to give up your queen for 2 rooks. But after captures, you're still undeveloped. There's no good way to continue the game. So instead, after queen d7, bishop to a3, attacking the rook, and now after rook to e8, even bishop to d3. First threatening queen captures on h7, and only then will you capture on a8 once you've done all of this. But it makes no difference. Fischer still wants the queen. He plays pawn to f5, forces queen captures on a8, and it's not really forced. You could still play queen to f3, and then Fischer just plays knight to c6, and the game continues, and you have a very nice game. But black definitely equalized, and if anything, black is even better. The knight is coming to a5, you will put pressure on the c4 pawn, the usual stuff, where Fischer will have to figure out how to deal with this backwards e6 pawn. But after pawn to f5, Laios went for queen captures on a8 right away. And okay, knight to c6, threatening to capture the queen, and queen captures on e8. This was planned. Queen captures, and now castles kingside. And here there is only one move that allows Fischer to sort of continue having the advantage here, and you have to play it. Otherwise, you will not be able to do anything this game. I'm pretty sure you guys see it as the bishop on d3 is undefended. The move is knight a5. And it's not a winning move or anything, but it just allows Fischer to play for more than a draw. If you play, a normal, let's say g6 to prepare e5 at some point, then rook 8 to d1, and you no longer have knight a5 because now white can play pawn to c5 and the bishop on d3 is defended. Also, probably the other rook can also come to d1. So after castles, knight to a5 right away. There's no saving the c pawn now. rook a to e1, and bishop captures on c4. We have bishop captures, knight captures, attacking the bishop, and bishop to c1. And Fischer strikes immediately with pawn to c5. Now, it seems like d5 is an idea here. But while you cannot capture due to the queen being on e8, you can play e5 and then e4, and then Fischer is just better. So after c5, d captures on c5 is played. We have b captures on c5, and now bishop to f4. The idea is now, okay, we stop pawn to e5. Even though here it can be played, the problem is the bishop just captures it, and after knight captures, pawn to f4, and not much to look for here. So here Fischer plays h6. He has to mobilize the kingside pawns. Rook to e2, preparing to double up on the e file, and now pawn to g5. We have bishop to e5 and queen to d8 now. Rook f to e1, preparing to somehow gobble up this e6 pawn, but Fischer just plays king to f7. And look at this. There is no square you can put this bishop. Your c3 pawn is blockaded by the knight, so you cannot go there. None of these squares are available to you. Also, this is not available. And if you play bishop g3, f4 just wins the bishop. So you can't really do that. So the only way to play is h4 or h3. Elias plays pawn to h3. He now prepares bishop to h2 so he can finally capture that e6 pawn. But Bobby says, nope, denied. Pawn to f4. We have king to h2, pawn to a6, and now rook to e4, putting pressure on the knight on c4, and now comes queen to d5. And Elias is completely tied up here. There's nothing he can do. He cannot move the rook. This rook would hang. He cannot move any of the rooks, basically, because the bishop would hang. While you can move the bishop, let's say to b8. I mean, what are you really doing there? So pawn to h4 is played, and now Fischer just wins the game on the spot. Knight e3. You don't have to rush it. You could also play knight d2. You could also play pawn to a5. There is no move that saves the position for last, so you can play it right away. You don't have to play it right away. However, you want to play it. And now f captures, just queen captures, as the rooks are now disconnected. So rook 1 captures on e3, f captures, and the rook captures. Okay. You managed to trade down a little bit, but now the queen is obviously stronger than the bishop and the rook, and now it's merely a matter of how Fischer finishes the game. Queen captures on a2, we have rook to f3 with check, king to e8, and now bishop to g7, but Fischer just goes queen to c4. Now captures and queen captures with check will pick up the bishop, so h captures on g5, h captures, and rook to f8 with check. Fischer played king to d7, rook to a8, and here just king to c6, and he was in this position on move 35 that Lajos Portisch resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You have no moves that basically do anything, and the plan is very simple. Even without trying, you can just play something like queen b5 and then start advancing your pawn. You have to be a little bit careful. I mean, you don't want to run into something like, let's say bishop e5, queen b5. Let's say rook goes here, you start pushing the pawn, and then maybe, something like c4 gets implemented, and then you get maybe, but it's very, very unlikely that such a thing could happen, because there's just no way to stop the black king. Well, you could play queen to c7 here, but king to b6. There's just no way to stop all of the squares. So even if there was maybe such a trick, of course, Bobby Fischer would never fall for it. But here there even isn't. So of course, Elias doesn't even try it. But yeah, brilliant game by Bobby Fischer. So I don't know. Like I said, in some lines it's called the Bobby Fischer line. In most of them, I believe, it is the St. Petersburg variation. But all in all, Bobby got some very, very nice with this line. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry for a bit of a longer intro, but I think it's important to, when we talk about chess history, and even if we talk about this era, like the 1966, or maybe from, the 1960 to 1970 or 1972 when Fischer became world champion, it's also very nice to sometimes mention, great games of the past, great players of the past, and, what came before. So yeah, for those of you who are just joining us, these are the final standings of the, obviously not that, sorry, that's from yesterday's, but okay, it doesn't matter. You guys know the final standings. Boris Spassky won the tournament, half a point ahead of Bobby Fischer, and that's pretty much it. We're gonna cover the tournament until we reach the the clashing point of Fischer and Spassky in round 2, because we already covered their first game of the tournament. If you haven't seen it, I also have a playlist on the Piatigorsky Cup, but I have a playlist about everything, so just enjoy. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank David Gasparian, Feral Gerald, Mike Manson, Rohaho Hostetla, and More Classics for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And I've been informed that my channel has received now dubbing to other languages, so I don't know if it works. If you guys speak other languages, check it out and tell me if it works. See you soon.